Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Monday, June 23rd, 2025, and today we're going to talk about broadcasting cover crops into untouched ground, why no-till actually makes things harder sometimes, and the explosion of tick populations, because who doesn't like talking about parasitic blood-sucking arachnids from time to time? So let's do it. All right, happy Monday to everyone. I hope you all are doing well and that you had lovely weekends. It is finally and officially summer here and hot here. The eastern U.S. is in a bit of a heat wave with heat indices expected to be around 105 Fahrenheit or 40 degrees Celsius today. And today is not even the hottest day of the week, so that is probably going to melt some veggies. We shall see. Now, this heat wave isn't unexpected. Summers are by their very nature hot, and it's been relatively cool so far this season, so not a lot to complain about there. But a week of this weather or more will definitely limit some activity in the region. So, of course, take care of yourselves this summer. We're actually going to talk more about heat tomorrow, but heat exhaustion is brutal. So be mindful, find some water to drink, but also to wade in from time to time. Went swimming with the kids this weekend. It was actually quite pleasant. I forget how much I enjoy just being in a pool. And also, it's summer, and water is awesome. Facts. Hey, I have a request or an idea, I guess. I'd like to hear from you. We all would. If you're game, here's what I want you to do. Record a video clip with your phone, no longer than 20 seconds, please, from your garden. Say your name, the region or state or area that you're located, and say how the season is going so far. That's it. Just kind of want to hear. Just check in the pulse of the growers who listen to the show for a segment or two next week. Send that to notillgrowers@gmail.com with the subject line video clip so we will see it. I'll put all the directions or whatever in the show notes. But again, please, no more than 20 seconds, and I'd love to hear from you. Awesome. Thank you. Anyway, the other day I was doing some really tough cultivation on a plot, and something occurred to me that either I have never talked about or have not in a long time, because I can't remember doing it. So I thought it might be worth sharing. Basically, I was cultivating the area where I am experimenting with some milpa-style gardening, trying to grow corn, dry beans, sunflowers, and winter squash together, something I have never personally done, but have had a plot free to play around with, and decided to give it a whirl. But the idea being that I just wanted to simply pull the tarps off of some terminated cover crop, sow some seeds, and walk away. Something super simple and beautiful and diverse, and yet here I was cultivating with a stirrup hoe into kind of really difficult soil. The exact opposite of what the goal and or point was. To back up, here's what I did and why it didn't work, at least against the weeds. First, I had a semi-tender cover crop of crimson clover and lacy phacelia there in that plot in the winter that died early due to the ice storm you may remember. So I had to resow those crops along with some rye in February and got some decent growth, then I mowed it. However, I had the bright idea to shovel the soil back on top of the mowed cover crop with it wasn't actually a shovel, it was actually a rotary plow. But anyway, I threw it up onto the beds to raise the beds back up, and then tarp that for a while to kill any newly uncovered weed seeds from the shoveling of the pathways onto the beds. Although I have high hopes for the fertility part of that idea, this raising up of the beds means that I exposed some weed seeds that the tarp didn't kill. Flash forward a month, and here I am cultivating. Now, why I didn't mulch it, you may ask? Well, I didn't have that much compost, and it would have been expensive to cover that area in compost, and also to cover that much area in hay, it would have cost like a couple $100, which would be fine perhaps for more profitable crops, but this was a plot I was trying to keep relatively on the cheap side because it was kind of an experiment. I could have also kept the tarp on longer to help with those weed seeds. I could have avoided the urge to hill the beds up a bit to avoid bringing new weed seeds into the mix. There are things I could have done better, but the crux of it is that no tillage techniques, when done right, can equate to a massive reduction in workload and management. When done wrong, however, or done sloppily or lazily like this one, they can have the opposite effect. In this case, I had a relatively large plot of not very loose soil that I now have to cultivate a few times unless I want a patch of grass and weeds underneath of the crops that I want, which nope, not really. I'm always playing around, kind of testing boundaries and trying new to me things. But I think it's really important that, especially if you're going to rely on this business for your living, you should stick to the fundamentals and simple, proven systems that fit your farm's needs. Because, like I said, no-till can be amazing for keeping the workload down, or when done wrong, can really put things out of control quickly. What would that look like in this case? Well, if I wanted to raise those beds back up, I should have done that in the fall when I planted that original cover crop that died in the ice storm. That would have taken care of some of the summer weeds that are popping up now. Then I would still have to have re-sowed another cover crop because of that ice storm, but that would have reduced the weed populations. I should have also kept the tarp on for at least one more full week. 3 in this situation was just not enough. Probably needed 4, maybe even 5 weeks. And ideally, I would have had or planned for mulch for on top of the cover crop residue just to provide that moisture element and also protect from the weed seeds. Having that soil on top of the cover crop residue has complicated things. I still think fertility-wise, that plot's going to be great, but it's going to take some management. I guess if there is a simple moral of the story, it's keep things simple and do it right the first time. And if there's another moral, I guess, I'll try the weird soil preparation stuff so you don't have to. Cool? Cool. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, sowing cover crops into weeds. BRB. Today's episode is brought to you by Farmhand. If you're listening to this, you probably found 5 rare minutes to breathe, but what got pushed back further down the to-do list to make that happen? If it's your CSA newsletter, you're not alone. Farmhand's new newsletter builder was made for busy farmers. It automates weekly emails, drives add-on sales, and makes it easy to keep your customers in the loop without spending hours behind a screen. It launches this summer, but our listeners can request early access now. Visit farmhand.partners/no-till. That's farmhand.partners/no-till. All right, back to the show. If you, the listener, are enjoying this podcast, getting even a small amount of value from it, consider supporting our work over at patreon.com/notillgrowers. I will try to get to questions from everywhere that questions come in, but I will always get to your Patreon questions now. Today's Patreon question comes to us from Patreon member Loke Nielsen, who writes, quote, "Hello, happy May." Sorry, I know it's not May anymore. I have a question about cover crops for an area I won't use at least this season, maybe not next one. It was an overgrown field with somewhat uneven terrain, some of it on a slope. I haven't found any super resistant weeds except for a bit of gout weed and couch grass. Anyhow, I've mowed it once, and if I were to simply mow it down low a couple times and throw out seeds just on top of the field without doing anything to the soil, what kind of plants might handle something like that and be able to compete and still give me some biodiversity and fertility for the future? I plan to till it once to create beds since I have got my hands on an old walk-behind tractor. But first, I need to learn how to repair it or any mechanical thing really. So until I can use it for creating those beds, I don't feel like using precious materials I could otherwise grow in right now, and thus the question about what I can do in the meantime. Thanks again for the space, the podcast, and all the useful videos, end quote. Okay, fun question here. Thank you, Loke, and apologies for it taking all the way until almost the end of June to get to it, but I am slowly getting caught up. I mean, I think so. Anyway, Loke's question essentially comes down to this. Can I, or should I, add a cover crop over top of an area where I would like to plant in the future? Like, is it worth the seed and work to just broadcast it over top or onto an existing space if I mow it really low? And by and large, the answer is going to be that it is not worth the seed cost, but that doesn't necessarily mean it can't work. Generally speaking, no, broadcasting something over top of existing sod or weeds or whatever will mostly just waste that seed. If you were to drill the crop in there, mow it again, really low to the ground right before that crop came up, then maybe that could work, at least to some extent, but that would require a pretty legit seed drill to accomplish it. A seed drill just being a tool that cuts a small furrow and drops seeds in behind the little cuts that it makes. However, in terms of broadcasting, clovers could be somewhat of an option if wasting a little seed is no big deal. Like if it's not a large area and you have the time and are just wanting to play around a little bit, essentially get yourself a couple different types of clovers, broadcast the clover over the area at the suggested rate per acre from whoever you bought it from, and make sure it is the untreated kind of clover. There are treated kinds that will come. They have like a little coating on the seed. It should just look like seed and not like pink. Then anyway, mow that area really low. The micro mulch from the mowing should cover the seeds adequately enough to germinate them, as clovers germinate fairly well right on the soil surface because they are small seeds and don't require quite the same level of seed to soil contact as other larger cover crop seeds. Clover is really nice in that way. We often reseed our living pathways with white clover by just broadcasting it on the soil surface or over top of whatever is already there in the fall, and it competes really well in the spring. We have also sowed crimson clover around crops like fall brassicas a week or two after planting them, and let it cover the ground beneath the whatever that crop is going into the winter, which doesn't add a lot to that specific crop, but works decently well at just having a nice living mulch. And then of course it takes over for the winter. It doesn't require working into the soil necessarily. Now, if you want to get those beds in check and keep those weeds down, both of which you mentioned are rhizomatous, so mowing won't kill them right away or maybe at all, and you're not looking to use a tarp, it might be worth getting straw to cover that space just as a really thick mulch if it's not too expensive to do that for what you have. Then whenever you're ready, it's just a matter of pulling the mulch aside and planting. That mulch would have to be thick, and you may want a little bit of craft paper beneath it to additionally help block those weeds. But that is also a potential option out there. And also, you don't necessarily have to add something to like a pasture to make it healthier. Treat it like livestock treat pastures. You basically graze like the top few inches and let it regrow, and then graze the top few inches and let it regrow. And you can grow a lot of soil organic matter by just mowing it really, really high and letting it regrow a little bit and then mowing it a little bit higher every time. And the roots will die back and that will create a lot of soil organic matter. That's how you would do it in a rotational grazing system. And there's not necessarily a reason you can't do that with a mower or a weed whacker, depending on how much space we're talking about. Anyway, I hope there was something helpful in there. Otherwise, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, tick populations are on the rise. Oh, goody. And what we can do about it as farmers, more or less. Be right back. All right, I'm in the field, and I have a quick question for you. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see this, but here's a pepper plant, right? There's a bunch of peppers here. This is a pepper plant, and it's a Carmen plant. Here, at the bottom, at the base, goes up about 6 or 8 inches, and there's always a pepper that comes out where the plant splits. Now, we've always called this pepper the king pepper, and we pop them off because even if this ripens, it's not going to taste like anything. It just comes out of that like initial armpit, that upside down armpit, and it doesn't taste like anything, and we called it the king pepper, but I've never heard anyone else call it that. So my question is, have you ever heard that phrase? Let me know. And it doesn't matter if it's a bell pepper, Carmen, bullhorn, whatever. It's same thing. No peppers up here, pepper out of the split right there in the middle. And I don't know why it doesn't taste like anything, but it never tastes like anything, even if it's a very big, pretty pepper. King pepper.
Today's episode is brought to you by FarmRaise. Still struggling with your balance sheet? Your lender's asking for a balance sheet and you're stuck with a spreadsheet mess or guessing your numbers? FarmRaise Tracks takes the stress out of farm finance. With one click, you can generate an accurate, up-to-date balance sheet that shows your assets, liabilities, and equity. No accounting degree required. You'll be ready for loan applications, tax season, or just a clearer picture of where your farm stands. Join thousands of farmers using Tracks to build stronger businesses. Get 20% off with code NOTILL20 at farmraise.com for the lifetime of your membership. All right, back to the show.
All right, so here's a fun fact about me. I have probably pulled off hundreds, if not thousands, of ticks off of me over the years, and almost all of those in the last 15 years. Before 2010, when I moved back to the countryside officially, it had been one single tick in 1996. It was so unusual that I remember the year, the location, and the fright on my mom's face when she saw it. I spent a ton of time in the woods at that time, in the fields, outside when I was a kid, just running around Kentucky, Tennessee, Illinois, Florida, and I never got ticks, save for that one in Steelville, Illinois on the 4th of July. Oh, it's kind of the anniversary of that soon. Fun. Now, however, I'm surprised when I don't have a tick after walking through our grass and wild field areas. I basically just check for them every day. Of course, anecdotes like that are just anecdotes. Just because I have had this experience of going from no ticks when I'm playing in the fields as a young kiddo to numerous ticks when I'm playing in the fields as an older kiddo isn't proof of anything. It's just anecdotal evidence, but it does track with what researchers are finding that tick populations are not just growing, but their individual ranges are expanding. Take this lead from an article delightfully entitled Tick, Tick, Boom from the University of Vermont. Quote, until 2004, a black-legged tick had never been found in Vermont. By 2017, with winters warming, the Green Mountain State led the nation in Lyme disease of infections per capita, end quote. Indeed, tick numbers and diversity are growing nationwide, and with them, cases of Lyme disease are increasing, a common illness carried by ticks and transferred to humans, among other diseases such as Rocky Mountain fever and one called alpha-gal syndrome, which is an allergy to red meat. I have a friend, in fact, who has alpha-gal from a tick bite, and it's rough news when they consume red meat. I'm sure some folks watching this have had an experience with one or two or some of these diseases from tick bites, and my heart goes out to you because they are all brutal diseases. With the rise in their populations, we all may have some brush with them at some point. Our kids definitely learned about tick checks early on and are good about alerting us to itchy spots. There is a bit of a grace period for some of these pathogens, just it's important to know, though maybe not all of them, where if you remove a tick within a certain number of hours, you can reduce the risk. So yeah, tick checks regularly. It's important. Also, while researching this, as a side note, I learned that you shouldn't crush ticks with your fingernails, which is something we've always done because some of the pathogens that they carry are capable of entering the body through breaks in your skin that you may be unaware of. Drowning them in alcohol is the recommendation for the most part. And I mean for the tick, not for like any sorrows. Anyway, so why? Why are the ticks on the rise? Well, there are a few factors. One is just a rebound in deer species. Deer have made a comeback, and with them, ticks and diseases have spread. Though wild birds and other critters also spread ticks, so don't just go yelling at the deer. I mean, you can though. They're giant rodents. You can yell at them all you want, but it's not only their fault. Also, another is just warming winters. Ticks are living longer and starting earlier in the season. In fact, there was one year I had a tick as early as February, which feels certifiably not okay. Like we have an agreement. You come in the summer, not in the winter. Anyway, lower numbers of tick-eating bird and animal species may also play a role. Now, there is no easy solution to ticks, but one part of the solution is, and stop me if you've heard this one from me before, better ecological management. As has been a nice little theme this June, our physical health is directly tied to the health of our environment, and ticks are a great example of how that works. They thrive with fewer predators, like potentially the grassland birds we lose from mowing at the wrong times, like I talked about with Becca a few weeks back. We'll link that in the show notes. Ticks thrive in a warmer climate. They thrive in the remaining leaf and plant litter left at the end of the season that we no longer burn, controlled burns, showing some promise in reducing establishment of certain tick species. At some point, we as a society have to value the natural world as a quantifiable part of our health and well-being. And we can start addressing things like tick-borne diseases, the current ones and the future ones, at least partially through better ecological management of our lands. Everyone who listens this far to any of these episodes is part of the choir, I'm sure. But we do need to sing this one louder and louder and start bringing these real-life examples to the people who may just not see it or care about it. Because ticks and the diseases they bring, to just use that one simple example, are no longer just a problem of the woods or the pastures. They are coming into cities and hanging out on buildings. The health of the environment is everyone's problem, which is how we will end this Monday. Don't forget, No-Till Growers is now officially a 501c3 nonprofit, so donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. You can learn more about how to kick in the show notes. Please make sure to like and subscribe and or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That's an easy way to help us out. Enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors. And if you'd ever like to sponsor the show, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at notillgrowers.com. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music, Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing, and the team at No-Till Growers. Also, shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can hear. Listen to that while I pull up the Patreon numbers. Pick up a copy of the Living Soil Handbook of the Seed Farmer at notillgrowers.com to support our work. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/notillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, or you sign up in the month of June, you get a shout out in the show. So big shout outs today to Dr. Laura Neri and Bonnie Geber, one of those. All right, so this week's story is that of a little girl, maybe in, I don't know, the 4 or 5 year old range. Her family has a very large garden, and the little girl just loves the garden, just adores being out there in the soil and chasing bugs. And because lately her mom has been playing with her more than ever. Like this night, for instance, they are out in the garden, slowly harvesting the potatoes in the dark. And her mom tells her they are not harvesting the potatoes. They are, in fact, hunting them. And you have to be quiet, or they will scamper away under the soil. Who of them can fill their basket the fastest, asks her mom. And so the little girl digs and fills her basket and digs and fills and digs and fills. And although her mom fills several baskets in the amount of time it takes her to fill one, she takes a lot of pride in the basket of critters that she has caught. Not a single potato got away, she tells her mom. And her mom whispers quietly, "You have to stay quiet or we'll scare the peppers off for tomorrow night." So they get their baskets and they tiptoe quietly out of the garden and back to their tunnel. To be continued tomorrow, pending Patreon member signups, I suppose. Thanks for watching and or listening. We will see you then. Bye.